Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to User One Productions. My name is David, and welcome to my very first tutorial on the How to Make a Game series. In today's episode, we will be going over how to make a full customizable FPS player. If you guys come to enjoy this video, please remember to drop me a like and subscribe if you're new. Click the notification bell so you do not miss a video by me. Also guys, please keep in mind, in the description down below is my Discord server with hundreds of very talented game developers and people always willing to learn and help. On top of this, also in the description you could also find my Google Drive where I store every asset that I make on this channel. So scripts, sound effects, 3D models, etc. You can find those for a free download that you can use in your projects. Without further ado, let's hop into Unity and go over how to make this FPS player. So here we are inside a blank Unity scene. I like to use Unity 2019.4. It's a long-time service version of Unity. This script will work with newer versions. I just like to use 2019. It's what I'm familiar with. So for starters, inside that Google Drive, I have a folder called Prototype Assets that I'm going to click and drag in. This is a little basic demo scene that I have made inside of Blender, and I like to use it when prototyping any of my projects. What I'll do is right click on it and unpack completely, because it does come with a camera and a lamp that I do not need, so they'll be deleted. And then I will delete the main camera that comes with every Unity scene. The reason I like to use this little testing area for my projects is because we have stairs, we have different slopes and jump heights, so we can really test out to see how our player movement is working before we build a whole scene and have to revamp it. Next, what I'll do is right click 3D object and I will add a capsule for our player and just kind of bring him over to the scene. And clearly he's really big for our scene right now, so let's change our scale to maybe 3. That's too big, so let's do 2. And right about there is almost correct. So we will make sure our bean is not too big and to make sure he's not going to clip through the floor. So I'm just going to place him just like that. And then what I'm going to do also in that test scene is make sure that we have collisions. So what I will do is highlight everything in the test scene, add component, and we will be adding a mesh collider. We can close that up because we're all set with the test scene. Capsule, I'm going to tag as player and rename it to player. Inside that player, I'm going to right click, add a camera, and we're just going to bring it right above the bean. Something like that. We're also going to add a tag to this camera to be the main camera. I always like to change the FOV to 80, so that way it feels more modern. Clipping planes to 0.01, so that way nothing gets clipped through the camera when we're walking up to it. Something else in the prototype assets is just a whole bunch of different grids, so you can make different materials and click and drag them around the scene instead of having to worry about texturing right away. So this is a nice little asset to have if you're blocking out a scene. And if you're curious what blocking out a scene is, that might be a future tutorial, and it pretty much goes into the whole build of a scene. So now what I'm going to do is go into my assets, right click, create a new folder, and call this scripts. And inside that folder, I'm going to download from the Google Drive the player, and just click drag that in, compile the script, and here we are, this script right here. I will open it up and just vaguely go over it. I'm not going to go over every little piece to it or this tutorial would be super long. And I don't really want to be one of those YouTuber tutorial guys that just talk about scripts the entire time. So what I've gone ahead and done is add spaces and headers so that way inside the editor it's going to look way more clean. I do have some comments here so that way you know what's actually going on inside the script if you had to change something yourself. So at the top here, all these private and public variables is pretty much all the different things that the script can do. We have logics for grabbing our start functions, which is just locking our cursors, starting the positions of the player, and grabbing the character controller. In the update, we have our run functions here, our jump functions, crouching, proning. So yes, this script does have all that type of functionality. Going down here to about line 160s through 180s, you can actually change the buttons. So right now my crouch button is going to be the letter C. So if you had to change that to something else, you would just change that C to another letter on your keyboard. Same thing with proning. Proning I have to Z. I know a lot of people like to have that as control, but I think Z is going to work for tutorial's sake. We have our logic for crouching right here. Logic for proning, which is pretty much just changing our position up and down. We have another function right here, an I enumerator to make sure that it is moving to those different heights smoothly. There's also footstep logic. I'll go over this a little bit more afterwards. As you can see, I have grass, dirt, carpet, tile, and wood. So if you wanted to do different tags or different names for what you're stepping on, you can always do that. Right here, stopping the footsteps when we're done moving. Right here, we're pretty much going to be grabbing the footsteps from a sound array, so we can play a random sound. Instead of it playing through 1, then 2, then 3, it might choose 2, then 1, then 3. It just randomizes the footsteps a little bit. And then we also have some logic for updating our stamina. So this script actually handles a lot for a first-person controller. My goal when I was creating this is that you could use this controller for any sort of scenario, a horror game, a multiplayer, shooter, platformer, anything that you could think of you could use this script for. So what I'm going to do is click and drag that onto the player, and you will notice that it will automatically put a character controller on there for you, because that's how I set up the script. And then here's all the headers. So we have basic mechanics, walking, running, jumping, crouching, proning, camera settings, footstep settings, stamina settings. So the main thing that we actually need to do first before doing any of this is make sure our camera is right here in the player camera. I have a look speed, which you could always change this if you had game settings. You could reference this variable and then it would change like this inside the game itself. For right now, I'm going to keep it at 2. We have a look for the X limit, which is pretty much our limit to how far we can look up and down. Also, what I want to do is I want to click on our player and make sure the mesh renderer is off, so that way we don't see that bean when we're playing the game. Let's go to that look X limit really fast. I'm going to change that to about 80, so that way we can almost look all the way down, almost look all the way up. As you can see, it limits how far we can look. And now we can walk around. And that's the basics of it. We cannot jump. We cannot run. We cannot crouch. We cannot prone because we haven't set those up. It's a fully customizable system I've come up with. So now if I tick can run, can jump, can crouch, can prone, I'm not going to use footsteps right now. We'll go over that a little bit later. I'm not going to use stamina right now. We'll go over that later. So let's say our walk speed is 3 and our run speed is 6. The gravity for jumping works pretty well. You can always change that to get different heights and achieve different how fast you come down from the gravity. Crouch speed is how fast you get to that crouch position. Right now it's at 3. The height is 1. I'll keep it as that. Same thing with proning. It has the speed and height. I'll change the height a little bit lower, maybe 0.2. Now, let's play the game. We can walk, we can run, we can jump. Pressing C, we can crouch. We can get up from crouch, press Z, and now we're proning. But as you can see, if this is my walk speed, this is my crouch speed, this is my prone speed. And as you can see, it slows down between each one because in the script they have it dividing the actual walk and run. When crouching, you cannot run. When proning, you cannot run. And that's about it. As you can see, we have a fully customizable player. So other things that are actually in this script that we can do. We have stamina. So let's see how we can accomplish how to actually make a stamina meter. So what we'll do is I will add a UI canvas. And I'm going to call this HUD for right now. Double click it and make sure we're looking at it orthographic view. Right click inside the HUD. Actually, before we do that, we always want to make sure our canvas scaler is a scale with screen. And I like to do 1920 by 1080 because that's the monitor I'm using. And this will be a nice number to scale down for bigger or smaller monitors and scale up for bigger monitors. So we will go HUD, UI. Actually, I lied. Let's create an empty and call this the fill or stamina. Then I'll go UI. We'll do a image. what I will do is make sure it is in the center by holding Shift and Alt, double clicking that center one. I will call this the background, so BG for the stamina meter. I'll make it black. And then I will scale it while holding Alt to make sure it scales on both sides. Something like that for right now, just for demonstration purposes. So if that's the background, we are going to Control D, and we'll call this the fill. And I'll make it blue, because I think stamina in games is usually blue. And now we need to add an image source. So what I'll do is go to Assets, create new, a new folder, and I will just call this Textures. So pretty much in order for this to fill, it needs to be an image. Technically, yes, this is an image as it is right now, but for Unity to register it, we need an image source that is a sprite. So what we can do is either make a nice PNG for our stamina meter, or we just go into an application, say Paint for example, and I'm just going to scale this back, save as, go to the desktop, right? And we will just say, we'll call it just fill for now. With that blank image created, we'll go Textures, Fill, the image I just made, and as you can see, it's just a white box. And I will go to Texture Type, change it to a sprite, apply it, and now this is a sprite. Inside of our fill image in our hierarchy, we can click and drag that fill into the sprite properties, and then image type we will do filled, and you can change this to any which way you want. So if you guys look here for right now, you got radial, which is more round when going up and down. It really all depends what kind of fill you're using, whether it's a circle or if it's just a basic line, what I'm doing here, for example. So right now I will do horizontal from the left. So as we run, our stamina will go up and down like this. So we'll keep it at 1. Let's move this to a better location, maybe over here at the top left of the screen. Just like that, kinda. Inside our player, we need to go down to stamina settings, stamina fill. We're going to click and drag fill right there. You also have max stamina, so this can be like upgraded within your game if you wanted to. I'm going to keep it at 100. We have the regen rate, depletion rate, and min jump. So our stamina can be affected by our jump as well, if you so choose to do that. If you don't want that, you just put this variable to 0, but for demonstration, I will keep it on. So now, playing the game, if I walk, everything's fine. Crouch, everything's fine. Prone, everything's fine. If I jump, ooh, right there. And then it regens. If I run, you can see it's slowly depleting. If I jump, it gets depleted more until we have pretty much no stamina and I cannot run. It's going to regen. I'm going to jump up here. So it's fully customizable to where depletion rate, you could change this to just 1. Oh, that's regen, my bad. Let's go to depletion, and I will just do 1. Min jump, let's do 0. And you'll notice now when I jump, it's not doing anything to my stamina. And when running, it is going down super slow. Now we can quickly go over how these footsteps work. So again, from that Google Drive, you can download the footstep sounds, which I will click and drag that into my assets. And now if we go into the footstep sounds, I have 4 different sounds for each of the possible variables that I currently have. So that's carpet, dirt, grass, tile, and wood. I'm not going to go over every single one. I'll just do one and show you how the process is done. So let's go down to our test scene. The way this works is to look at which collider or trigger we are actually touching with our player. So what I'll do is create a new cube and bring it over to our test scene here. And from our top orthographic, I'm just going to make it big and scale it to the size of this floor that we're going to be walking on. Something like that. I'm going to make sure is trigger is on and mesh renderer is off. And I'll just rename this to footsteps example. What else you need is a tag on it. So which footsteps will we do? We'll do wood. So I'm going to add the tag right here. I'm going to call it wood. Save it. Make sure you click footsteps example again and apply the wood tag. So now that that is set up, all we got to do is set it up inside of our player. How we do that is we click our player. We need to say use footsteps is on. I'll go to the wood footsteps, and the size is right now 0, so we'll add 4. And then we just click and drag all of our wood footsteps into this array. And like I said earlier, it's going to pick a random one from the list, so it might go 4, 4, 1, 3, 1, 1, 2. It's going to be completely randomized. Something else we need to do is add a component to our player, which is an audio source, and this is the source that is going to be playing the footsteps sound effect. So we'll make sure play on wake is off, and the audio clip is nothing. It's going to automatically grab these clips and put it in there every single time we walk or run. So let's actually play the scene and see how that works out. So as you can see, when I walk, we have a footstep sound playing. If I run, they speed up. If we crouch, they slow down. And then if we prone, they slow down. Perfect. Everything seems to be working correctly right now, and that's pretty awesome. And like I said, inside the script, you could add more of these sounds, or vice versa, you could change these out. So say you were not using tile, you could always change the name from tile to something else. For example, if you needed to step on metal, you could always change this to metal. Say you wanted to add a new one, what we're going to do is just say, copy this, and let's add a new row. Let me show you how this is done first. So instead of tile footsteps, I'll call this metal footsteps. Okay, so now you already have the new public variable for metal, and then we'll go to the bottom of the script where our footstep sounds are, and here they are. And pretty much all you do is you're gonna copy the else if and the little function that comes with it. So copy it, and we will add it to the bottom. And now let's say what the tag actually is. So if it's metal, we play a random footstep from metal footsteps, if I can type that correctly. Metal footsteps. Save the script, go back into Unity, compile the script. Very nice. And as you can see, we now have a section for metal footsteps. And then the process is the same, creating the area that is going to be affected, and then adding a tag for metal. So now we have our whole player set up. Let's talk about how to add health to the player. So what we can do is go back to our Google Drive and download the player health script. Click and drag that into our scripts folder, let it compile. Let's take a little peek in here really fast, see what's going on. So we have current health and max health. We also have a health bar or health counter. So these are bools similar to our player, so you can pick and choose which one you want to use. And then all the little logics for it, for updating the UI, updating health, death functionality. And right now for our death function, I just have it inside the debug.log statement saying the player has died. You can always change this to something else like loading a new scene or enabling the game over screen inside that scene, or simply just destroying the game object. So let's actually click and drag this onto our player, see what's going on here. I'm going to tick off use health counter, or in fact, for tutorial sake, I'll keep it on, just so I can show you how it's done. So right now we have uses health bar and uses health counter. You can always tick these two off, and then there could be no indicator as to how much health you have. But right now what we'll do is inside our HUD, the fill stamina, I'm going to duplicate it and just call this fill health. And then what I will do is just move it down, or maybe above the stamina. I think that makes more sense. I'm going to change the fill color to a green for health. And then inside the player, let me close some of this stuff up, make it a little neater in here. Because we're done with the player script. We're done with the audio source. So now we just see the player health. There we go. It looks a little more clean now. For the health bar fill, let's click and drag that fill we just duplicated in from our fill health. And then health counter text, which I'm just going to right click on the fill health, UI, text. I'm going to make it the size of this UI for our health, right? Like this. I will change the font size to Let's do something big, like 40. Let's do 40. Just to make it look neat, I'll do bold. I'll change the text to a white and center it inside the health bar. And then what I'll do, I'll actually add a component, add an outline to it. Make sure it's all the way up in the transparency. And now there's a little outline around the text. So now on our player, let's actually click and drag that into the text field. And if we press play right now, you can see it automatically updates to 100. Like I said, the script will automatically do that. And then as we lose health in our scene, the number will change and the health bar will change. So let's actually test that functionality really quick. On the Google Drive, I have another script called Damage Zone. And this is just a way we can test out how our UI and everything's working. And all it shows is the damage amount that we're going to take, which we can change inside the editor, and then take the damage when we enter a collider. So this is a very basic way of doing it. If you had an enemy, this might be a piece of a script you want to actually attach to it. But we're not going over enemies, we're going over how to actually set up our player and everything like that. So let's go back into Unity and test this functionality of this script. So what I will do is game object, 3D object, cube. And I'm going to just make it a trigger, add the damage zone to it. And usually this would be an invisible object, but because of the testing purposes, we're going to just keep it enabled. We walk into it. As you can see, now we're at 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, and it just keeps going down as we're hitting this object. And as you can see, the functionality for dying is working because our debug.log says the player has died. We will go over later, not in today's tutorial, but health objects in a different tutorial, because now, right now we're just trying to set up a player and all of the functionality for the player itself. Other functionalities we can actually add right now in today's video for the player is Crosshairs. So again, Google Drive, download the Crosshairs script. And then I also have Crosshair Pack that I'm going to click and drag in. The Crosshair Pack is just some basic crosshairs that I've whipped up in Photoshop. And then the actual script itself, if we look at it, we have the main crosshair, interactable crosshair, and the triggers for interactable. So if we were picking up objects and we wanted a different crosshair to show, that's why I've made this script. So let's go into our player. We are going to click and drag crosshairs onto them, and then I'll actually close up the player health. So main crosshair, let's take a little look at what we got here. I usually just like to go with the dot. I think that's a nice little nonchalant crosshair to have. And then interactable crosshair, I like to do the, where is it? The hand. And interactable layer masks. So when creating an interactable, this is only if you want a different crosshair for when you can pick up stuff or use it. I'm just going to use this, I'm actually rename this damage zone. So that's our damage zone. Let's actually make this a little neater because this is a scene that we're going to be working in a lot through this Make a Game series. So let's add a new material. I'll do this red for the thing that can hurt us. And then I will add a yellow grid for the interactable test object. Pull those back there and just call this interactable test layer. I'm going to add a layer called Interactable. If I could spell Interactable. And then make sure our tag is Interactable. I will take off damage zone because I don't want it to affect our damage right now. This is just to show the crosshairs in action. So player, let's add interactable to the layer mask. And then I'm not going to max on play because I want to change some of these variables for our scaling of the crosshair. And this is where we can change the variables. So for my dot, I'm going to do 0.2, 0.1, 0.01, 2, 3, 2, 2.5. 0.025. And now when I come over here and look at it, you can see the hand works. although we want to change its scale, and I'm going to do it to 0.15. I think that works. Now, because we're actually in the scene, this is not going to save what we just did inside of our crosshair thing. So if I clicked out of this, it would change the variables back. So what you want to do actually is click these 3 dots, copy component, exit the game, and you can see it did go back to 1 and 1.5. And just paste the values, and now it saves. So now if we max on play, we have our dot. And if we look at this game object, through raycasts, of course, no more reach tool for user 1 production tutorials, we have a grab. And then with some functionality that we'll be going over later, we can pick it up. And I think that's going to be it for this tutorial, my friends. We went over how to set up a player, how to set up a scene with the prototype assets. We went over player health, crosshairs, footsteps, and now with this tutorial, you guys can start your journey on creating a platformer, horror game, multiplayer shooter, single player shooter, any sort of 3D FPS game that you can think of. All I ask for in return is a nice comment, a like on the video, and subscribe if you're new. As always, my friends, in the description down below is my Google Drive with every asset that I used in this video and previous tutorial videos. Another thing in the description is our Discord server with, I believe we're about to hit 700 people in the Discord. Always willing to help if you guys have questions or if you just want to make friends. And thank you so much for watching this video. This is User1 Productions signing off for now. Peace.